being last minute registrants. Good morning, everyone, on a terrific Tuesday. Thank you very much for coming over and attending the webinar. It's the last day for filing deadline of ESR for many of the jurisdictions. So today we've done an extended webinar. This is part of the last 10 days we've been doing a daily webinar. Today is the last day of the series whereby we've got an extended Q&A, and we've invited a lot of the previous participants as well to come and ask any questions, any last minute questions that they may have. The aim is really to help each one of you avoid the penalties, because the penalties are quite significant, which the presenter will go through during the presentation. The format for the webinar is very simple. It's literally half an hour of presentation followed by Q&A session, because what we believe is by asking the questions, we can make it more relevant to yourself. So please feel free to ask as many questions as possible, and we'll try and answer all of those questions, because today we've got an extended time as well for the Q&A. The Q&A session is open at any point of time. Even while the presentation is going on, please feel free to write the questions. Once the presentation is finished, we will answer every single question that you have put to us. So that's the key. ESR has been a positive move for UAE in terms of the financial transparency across the world. This law has not just affected UAE, it's been affecting a lot of the tax-free jurisdictions as well. This will help UAE increase its profile in the financial world. The ground rules for the webinar are very simple. Be 100% present, because we are going to talk about a lot of things in the first half an hour. We've tried to simplify it, but if there's things which you're not clear of, please feel free to put a Q&A. To make it more relevant, as I have mentioned, active contribution is absolutely important. By active contribution, what I mean is asking questions. The more you ask, the more we'll be able to help and serve you better. One only caveat for the advice, or what we're going to say in the webinar, is when you're asking question, at that stage, we've not actually reviewed any of the documents. So we rely on whatever you are telling us about your business, and our advice is based on that. So that's the simple caveat. Normally, if someone signs up for our service, we go through the documents and we give a written advice, because that's how we work as a professional firm. But in the webinar format, we are unable to review documents, but yes, please feel free to ask questions. So that's what it would be. As mentioned, the format is 30 minutes presentation followed by Q&A. While the webinar is going on, please do ask whatever questions you have. The presenter today is Mr. Rahul Chitkara. He's a qualified chartered accountant from India and a Green Belt Six Sigma. He's an expert on the tax, and he has studied the law in great depth. So without much further ado, I will now pass across to Rahul, who will take over the session now.
Thank you, Mr. Pramod, for the brief introduction. Good morning all. Welcome all to our today's webinar. This is Rahul Chitkara, Practice Manager at IFC, ESR, Economic Substance Regulation, and today is the deadline. Are you still worrying what it's all about? ESR has been a buzzword among business owners during these days. During our session, we'll try to decode and simplify it as much as possible, so as for easy understanding and for necessary suitable action in terms of ESR compliance. To begin with, our agenda would be like as follows. First, we'll speak about the introduction and the background to ESR, why this ESR has been introduced by UAE government, what are its applicability, to whom it's applicable, followed by the deadline, what are the deadlines to submit the notification, and what will happen if you fail to submit such ESR notification. That is, what are the penalties which can be imposed by the government. And the last part, which is a very important part, that is interactive Q&A session. We will be answering you all the queries with respect to ESR. And to move further, for the introduction part, before moving into detail, let's try to understand with a very simple example. This example will help us to understand and give us the rhythm to further understand the slides. So to begin with a very simple example, Let's say there is a company A in India and there is a one customer which is located in KSA. Company A is providing supply to company C. Let's assume it's a packet of cotton and the cost to make such packet is $30 for company A, and for company C the selling price is $100. So the overall net profit for company A would be 70 per packet. This is a very simple example. The corporate income tax, if there is 20%, in that case company A will be paying to Indian government 20% of the tax of the profit, that is $14. Hence the residual profit for company A would be 56. This is a very plain case, simple case. We'll take the similar elements from this example in another situation and try to understand how this company A can maximize their profit. Let's try to understand with another situation with similar elements. So still we have company A in India and we have client C in KSA. Now company A, what they did, they opened up their another office in UAE and it's called company B. Now company A is first providing supply to company B, then company B is further providing onward supply to their client C. So still the cost remains same, that is $30, and the selling price remains same, that is for $100. Now company A is transferring to company B at $40. Now what will happen for company A? The profit for company A would be $10. How? 40 is the selling price to B, 30 is the cost. Now if there is a corporate tax, that is again 20%. So overall profit, remaining profit for company A would be $8. Now what will happen for company B? For company B, the selling price is $100 and the cost for company B is $40. Hence the remaining profit for company B would be 60 per packet. Since there is no corporate tax in UAE, the remaining profit will remain same, that is $60. So if you try to analyze from this example, what the company A did, they maximize their profit by opening their office in UAE. Hence the consolidated group revenue increases to $68. How? 8 from first leg of transaction and 60 from the another leg of transaction. So overall profit increases to 68 as compared to previous scenario 56 only. So what happened? The company has shifted their profit to a country where there is no corporate taxation. This concept is called profit shifting. This concept was very important to understand in the beginning stage because it will help us to make rhythm to understand the further slides and to make overall understanding of this ESR concept. To prevent such practices and to ensure fair tax treatment and tax transparency among all the countries, the OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is an intergovernment organization established in 1961 with 37 member countries. The main purpose of this organization is to stimulate economic progress and world trade. They have over the period of time has introduced different strategy and mechanism how to ensure fair tax treatment among all the countries. Out of this, in 2013, they have released action plan on base erosion and profit shifting, and they have released 15 action plan, out of which 5th action plan speak about harmful tax practices. This action point specifically mentioned that there should be a fair tax treatment and any practices which indulge in harmful tax practices, which is in terms of tax avoidance and tax leakage or revenue leakage, should be prevented. As a result, we have economic substance regulation. Similarly, on the other line, Council for European Union, they have group code of conduct group on business taxation. On 5th December 2017, they have issued their report wherein they have mentioned UAE as a blacklist. Why? Because due to non-cooperative jurisdiction for tax purposes. As a result, the need arises for UAE government to honor the international commitment and to improve overall situation for the tax jurisdiction position, and as a result we have ESR now in UAE. So the main purpose of this ESR to prevent any tax practices which may indulge in unlawful avoidance or evasion. So ESR was introduced first time ever in 2019, 30th of April. The first cabinet resolution was passed, then followed by a couple of further guidelines. And in 2020, this year is the first year of its compliance. And hence, this regulation applied to financial year starting on or after 1st January 2019. So the main purpose of this regulation to ensure UAE entities are not undertaking such activity which are not relatable to their economic presence in the UAE. So what is economic substance? In simple language, it means each company in UAE has to demonstrate, have to provide justification with evidences that they have real economic presence in the UAE. And there are some parameters which I mentioned, how they can ensure they have adequate economic presence that we'll touch upon at later point of time in this slide. Now, as I mentioned, UAE licensee, it can be mainland or free zone company. It's applicable to everyone. And they have to demonstrate adequate economic presence in the UAE, which are relatable to their activity they undertake. So what are those 9 relevant activity which is listed down in the law? It is banking, insurance, investment fund management, lease finance, headquarter, shipping, holding company, intellectual property, distribution and service center. So to understand all these activities, trade license activity would be irrelevant. That is, we have to adopt substance over form approach. Like we have to go beyond what is mentioned in the trade license and to look for the actual activities being undertaken. So the actual activities are relevant, trade license activities not. So we have to adopt substance over form approach to check whether company is falling under either of the 9 activities or no. Now let's try to understand each relevant activity one by one. To begin with the first, if we are companies engaged in provision of loan to a related or unrelated company or individual and they are charging interest against such loan, it falls under lease finance. Similarly, companies engaged in financial lease, they are providing like risk and reward is transferred at the end of lease period for the movable asset, it will classify under lease finance. So it would be irrelevant whether in your trade license this lease finance activity specifically mentioned or no. If your company is engaged in such activity during previous financial year, then it falls under the relevant activity under name of lease finance. Similarly, if your company is situated in UAE and the main purpose of such company is to provide services to foreign group companies and such companies responsible for overall success and performance, it will fall under the headquarter business. It would be irrelevant that what is the corporate structure of this company, whether this company is ultimate parent company or subsidiary company, it would fall under the headquarter business. Similarly, if there is a company situated in UAE which are holding investments in terms of equity shares and they are driving dividend and capital gain only from such investments, it falls under the holding company definition. Further, if there is a company which are earning royalties, license fee, franchisee fee, capital gains from assets such as copyright, patents, trademark, brand and technical know-how, it will fall under the IP business, intellectual property. For example, if company is holding a brand, the right for which are licensed to other, it will fall under the royalty. As example, if company is holding one brand and they have given such rights to use such particular brand to another person, it will fall under the IP business. What will happen if company don't create their own IP? If company did not create their own IP and they acquired from another foreign group company and now they're earning income by providing such rights to another company, it will fall under the special category that is high risk IP. But it means the company deemed to have failed ESR test and there will be a further compliance in this regard and there can be consequences which we will discuss in next slide as well. Now come to the very important part. If company is buying one particular item or that is goods from a foreign group company which is located outside the UAE and they are distributing a reselling throughout the Middle East, will fall under the case of services, if company is providing services can be any kind of services like HR, administrative, consulting services to a group company which is based out of UAE, then it will fall under the service center definition. So distribution and service center are one of the major activity where most of the businesses would be falling in UAE. To understand further, what we understand from both example, if companies engaged in importing of goods from foreign connected person and they are distributing within the UAE, outside the UAE, it will fall under distribution. Similarly, if the company is engaged in export of services to foreign connected person or their business outside the UAE, it will fall under service center. So one of the question arises now by seeing these two definitions. What is foreign connected person? So to understand foreign connected person, let's understand connected person. So connected person is any natural person or legal person who is related to one or more natural person or legal person through direct or indirect ownership or control or common control. It will fall under the connected person. But what is the foreign connected person, which is not a resident in UAE? As example, if there is a company which already there in UAE with shareholder, with one shareholder, and this same company and shareholder, they want to open another company in India, and they open up the company in India now, and with same shareholder which was in UAE as well. So in this sense, the company B, which was situated in UAE in India now, that will be classified as a foreign connected person. Why? Because through direct ownership or control by the company A. Now let's move further to understand another activity. For banking, we all know banking like accepting deposits and providing the loans. Exchange house and financial intermediary will not be classified under banking business. They may fall under any other 8 activities. Insurance business, the insurance broker and agent will not be classified under insurance business. They may cover under any other activity, let's say lease finance or distribution and service center, if they are classified and qualifies the other activity, but they will not be specifically classified under insurance activity. For investment fund management, fund administrator, custodians, investment advisors would not be covered under investment fund management, but they may cover under any other previous activities. Similarly, for shipping business, travel agencies and international ship agencies will not be covered under shipping business activity. However, they may cover any other remaining activities if they fall under that. So far we covered the relevant activity, the key elements and key areas to understand whether we have business fall or not. One of the important point is we have to look beyond what is mentioned in trade license to assess whether our business is fall under this ESR relevant activity or not. So as a compliance part, what are the next steps? The ESR compliance is split into 2 parts. One is notification part and second is annual reporting part. Since ESR compliance would be an annual process, so each year, each entity has to submit in 2 parts. One is notification and second is the annual reporting part. So right now the immediate action for all business owners to submit the notification. What is notification? They have to notify the authority that their business is falling under the relevant activity or no. They have to confirm about relevant activity, yes or no. And the deadline is 30th of June, that is today. So in most of the free zone cases and the mainland entities, the deadline is falling today. So it's highly encourageable for our business to make the self-assessment and submit the notification without any further delay. And the second part of compliance is reporting part, which is the main ESR reporting. And there will be 3-level test, which I discussed earlier, to ensure that you have the real adequate economic presence in the UAE. 3-level test is whether your business is directed and managed within the UAE, whether the core income generating activities are being generated from the UAE, whether you have adequate employees, adequate expenditure, adequate assets within the UAE in terms of adequate test. By this only the UAE authority will come to know whether you have real economic presence in the UAE or no. So in the sense, each company has to inform their authority in terms of reporting whether they pass the ESR test or no. And the reporting would be most likely within 12 months from the end of financial year. That is for financial year ending 31st December 2019. The reporting will be due by 31st December 2020. That is by end of this year. Unlike the notification, which is a decentralized, notification is submittable to all the regulatory authority, but reporting part will be most likely centralized directly to Ministry of Finance, wherein each licensee has to report directly to Ministry of Finance over online form. So the next question arises, to whom we should report. So based on your activity and your company formation jurisdiction, if your company is situated in free zone, you have to report to your concerned free zone authority. If your company is situated in mainland, then based on your activity, you have to inform to concerned regulatory authority, which is defined in the law. For banking business, you have to report to UAE Central Bank. For insurance business, you have to inform to insurance authority. For investment fund management, you have to report to Securities and Commodity Authority. For lease finance, you have to report to again US Central Bank. And for the remaining 5 activities, you have to report to Ministry of Economy. So Ministry of Economy would be covering all the 7 Emirates Economic Department, like DED, Sharjah Economic Department, Abu Dhabi Economic Department. So all economic department across all 7 Emirates would be covered under Ministry of Economy, where we have to report for all the remaining 5 activities, whether we fall under relevant activity or no. So since each authority has their own form and mechanism, so there are deadlines specified by each free zone authorities, and most of the cases the deadline is 30th of June, if you can see in the slide as well. And the which are yellow highlighted, these are authorities which have made it mandatory to submit notification irrespective whether you fall or no. As example, like DIFC, Dubai Silicon Oasis Authority, Fujairah Free Zone, Jebel Ali Free Zone, they have mentioned it mandatory to submit the notification irrespective whether you fall or no. So it's very important call for all business owners to assess and submit the notification within the deadline they have mentioned. Now the next question is, now we understand that yes, there is a deadline, but we should report, to whom we should report. Now what will happen if we fail to submit? Then there is a penalty. So if your company failed to comply with the ESR regulation, the penalties may go up to 300,000 and the trade license could be withdrawn. To understand further the penalty, if your company failed to submit the notification within the deadline, the penalty is minimum 10,000, which may go up to 50,000. Similarly, if you are providing inaccurate notification, the penalty is similar, 10,000 to 50,000. And for the 3-level test, which we just discussed earlier, if companies failing in the ESR test, which is due by end of this year, then again penalties for first year 10,000 to 50,000, and subsequent years penalty may go up to 300,000. And there are other severe consequences as well. Your trade license could be suspended, or authorities can refuse to renew the trade license, and there can be other spontaneous foreign exchange of information with other authorities as well. So now we understand there are severe penalties. So what the immediate action should be, all business owners should assess whether they are falling under relevant activity or no during the concerned reportable financial period. How? By adopting substance over form approach. Substance over form means we have to look beyond what is mentioned in trade license. If we are falling under the relevant activity, we have to report to our concerned regulatory authority. And some of the cases, as I mentioned earlier, it's mandatory to submit irrespective whether your answer is yes or no. And what are the other points which each business should consider? There are some good practices, like each business has to substantiate that their board meetings are being conducted within the UAE. There is adequate quorum is present in the meeting, and all board meetings are being signed and properly maintained in the UAE, and they have adequate employees, adequate premise, adequate asset and expenditure in the UAE. So the next question arises, how many board meetings should be conducting by a business? What is adequate employee, adequate premise, whether law had defined some criteria and any limit? So authority expect that there should be at least one board meeting within a financial year. And coming to the adequate part, it's all depend upon the nature and size of the business. If you are able to justify that with such number of employees or such size of premise, you are able to work and able to operate effectively, then authority can accept your justification. Now moving further, as a recap, what we discussed so far, if your company don't have the trade license from any of the UAE authority, licensing authority, then regulation is not applicable. If you have the trade license, the next step would be whether you're falling under relevant activity or no. If you're falling under relevant activity, you have to submit the notification to authority. If no, then still encourageable to submit the notification, but the further part of compliance, that is annual reporting, will not be applicable. Third part, if your company is being owned by UAE government, that is 51% or more by stake, then still you have to submit the notification, but you will be exempted from the second part of compliance, that is annual reporting. If your company is falling under relevant activity, but in the particular financial year they did not earn the income from such relevant activity, still you have to submit the notification. But the later part of compliance, that is to demonstrate ESR report test, you have to be exempted from such regulation. For holding company business, which only purpose to drive dividend, there will be a reduced compliance. For high risk IP licensee, since they did not creating their own IP asset, there will be a deemed that they will have failed the test, and there will be automatic exchange of information with foreign competent authority. And there will be a 3-level test, whether license is being directed and managed within the UAE, whether the license have adequate employee, adequate expenditure, and adequate physical asset, whether the licensee perform core income generating activity in the UAE or no. They have to pass the 3-level test. And if you can provide adequate justification with evidences, then it's well and good. You are meeting the ESR test, which will be due by end of this year. In case of no, then you will be subjected to penalties, and there can be exchange of information with your other foreign jurisdictions. So there are some misconception. Some of the people relate this ESR with VAT, and they say they are not registered with VAT, so they will not be classified or eligible for this ESR. Would like to say both are different. ESR was introduced to honor the international commitment, and VAT was introduced because it's domestic taxation law, and there is no correlation. So each law has separate criteria for its eligibility. Coming to second part, Sabrina says these are only applicable to 9 activities. We'd like to clarify, yes, this is applicable to 9 activities, but point is we have to adopt substance over form by looking beyond what is mentioned in trade license. As example, if your company has provided loan to an employee or director and they are charging interest against such loan, then you rightly fall under the lease finance. This would be irrelevant that whether you're in a trade activity, trade license, you have mentioned this lease finance or no. And similarly, some of the clients say we did not get notification from the DED. Would like to clarify that Ministry of Economy would be the governing body for this ESR purpose for all the mainland licensee. That's all economic departments in all across 7 Emirates. If you have the license from that authority, you have to report to Ministry of Economy, and they have already released the notification form and the guidance to submit. So like to iterate, the ignorance of law is no excuse. So it's very important for all business owners to make self-assessment and submit the notification and ensure the compliance within the law. I would like to end by this quote from Ministry of Finance, which they have mentioned clearly. Be sure, don't ignore. If you are unsure whether your business is falling under ESR compliance or no, seek professional advice. It can be your in-house advisors. They can guide you on these further steps, or you can obtain external advice as well, and make sure that your business is doing right practice and having the proper compliance in terms of ESR. So by this, I would like to say thank you to everyone who has joined, and I hope you have some key takeaways from this overall session. And this is urge to all business owners to submit the notification by today itself, because today is the last date. And if you have any questions, please feel to put in chat box. We will be now answering your questions. We'll opening the interactive Q&A and we'll be answering all the questions. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much, Rahul, for presenting the ESR law in a simplified manner. We have already started to get some questions on the Q&A. I'll give an opportunity for others to start typing in the question and we'll go on to it. While we're doing that, I would just like to summarize as to what Rahul was saying, and I've made certain notes today as well as from the previous webinars in terms of what is actually important now as business owners. So firstly, it is important to understand that UAE is not alone in this ESR law. There's been various questions in terms of, okay, we've already got so many laws, why this ESR? Well, this ESR law is actually a very, very positive move for UAE. It is affecting not just UAE, all the tax-free jurisdictions have been affected across the world with this. It will bring financial transparency, and then it will attract further investments into UAE. So that's the important part in this. The key takeaways from the webinar was that firstly, and most importantly, this is one of the most common misconceptions. Rahul covered it in the presentation as well, but I would just like to reiterate, is that trade license renewal is not linked to ESR. Trade license renewal is completely different. VAT registration and application is completely different. ESR law is something about financial transparency. It's separate laws. You have to comply with all the laws if it is applicable. So ESR is a separate law. The second thing which is important, and I've seen some questions regarding corporate governance, which will go on to that corporate governance has now become extremely important. What the corporate governance means is that you need to keep your documents and your board minutes and your contracts well in place. If you look at the way UAE has progressed over a period of time in terms of corporate governance, you can see that in 2017, prior to VAT being introduced, even the invoicing was sometimes not done by businesses. It was just purely receipt given on check. So when VAT law came, that changed. Now ESR law has come, and what we need to do is keep a lot of those other things in terms of the contracts, perhaps with your subsidiary companies, perhaps with your related parties overseas. Those may have been mutual contracts whereby you didn't feel the need because it was based on trust. Now perhaps the documentation needs to be done. That is important. The board minutes, where are the board shareholders based? Those become very, very important now in the governance part. The other activities that, because trade license activity is not directly related, or it doesn't imply that you are part or not part of relevant activity, when you're completing the assessment, there may be two or more relevant activities for a business. Perhaps you are importing some goods from a related party. You may have given a loan to an employee and you're charging interest. I'm just using it as just an abstract example, but so then you are already doing two activities under relevant activity. If you have got a headquarter business, that's three activities. So it may not be listed in your trade license, but you have to take relevant activities for those three activities if that's what you're doing in the business. So it is important to understand how the internal assessment needs to be done. The deadline is today, so please do file in. Otherwise, as Rahul mentioned, the problem is the penalties are extremely high, and we don't need to pay any penalties. The law was published in 2019, but it was not publicized as much up until 31st May, or when basically all the free zones and the DED, the Ministry of Economy, they all came out, and now there's been a lot of publication. There's a lot of insistence that please do meet the deadlines. It is the business owner's responsibility to ensure that they are compliant with the law. So that is important. It is 2 steps to completion. The first step, as Rahul had mentioned, is reporting to the licensing authority. It is the first step, which is the deadline today. The next step deadline will be towards the end of the year, which will be actually filing the whole form, filing the whole thing. Today is about notification. The notification process is quite simple, but what you need to do is do an internal assessment first. The assessment part is the critical part that you need to do. The notification is via email or via web form, whatever your jurisdiction is. The 3 tests are very important, that the business has to be, where is the business directed and managed from? Is it from UAE, or is it just a company which has been set up in UAE for base profit shifting or base profit erosion, what Rahul had mentioned, an example. Are the core income generating activities in UAE? Do you have adequate resources to do that business in UAE? So these are some of the things which you have to worry about or assess about. One other word of caution, because we've been doing various webinars and people have approached us saying that there are some accredited agents who have come and advised us. And one thing which I would like to make clear is there is no accreditation body at the moment. It is very much down to the professional organizations like ourselves. There are others as well who have taken upon themselves to read the law and interpret the law and liaise with the authorities and identify what is it that is expected and helping the client. So that's the important part. So there is no accreditation. It is very much down to the professional organizations reading up the law and doing it. The last thing is, it is good practice to file, and we are recommending everyone to file even if you do the assessment and you feel that you do not the ESR is not applicable. We are recommending to file it still, saying that it is not applicable, because it is good practice. It demonstrates to the authorities that you've actually done the full assessment and you are now giving a positive affirmation for it. So without much further ado, we've got a few questions which have been put in. I will now invite Rahul to join me, and both of us will be now available till 11 o'clock to answer whatever questions. So without much further ado, Rahul, if you can please join us. Thank you very much, Rahul.
Thank you.
So let me kickstart. The first question is, if we have made purchases from foreign group company during 2019, but the stock has yet to be sold till date. So effectively, the purchases have been made from a foreign group company, but the stock is not sold as yet. Does this mean we have to earn income from relevant activity, provided all other purchases and sales made to and from third party?
Yeah, we'd like to clarify that earning income is not important with respect to ESR notification compliance. It is irrelevant that you have earned or no stock is still lying, since you are engaged in such business practice that you are importing from foreign connected person, and your plan is to provide onward supply within the UAE or outside the UAE, then it fall under the distribution. So to summarize, you can select distribution and service center among other points, other parameters, whether you follow or no. Then you have to submit as no, that did you earn income from relevant activity, as no, but you have to select distribution and service center.
Great, thank you. The next question is, if one of the ESR tests, it requires licenses to be directed and managed in UAE by way of having adequate board meetings in UAE.
Yeah.
As companies nowadays conduct virtual meetings, yes, we are all in that environment at the moment. So are minutes recorded based on these virtual meetings acceptable for the ESR test compliance purpose?
As per the law, it is important that all business meetings should be conducted physically in UAE. The proper quorum must be present. But due to this COVID situation, which is unprecedented, and the Ministry of Finance has clearly mentioned that they will consider as exception that is during 3 months or 4 months or due to travel restriction, if within the first 6 months you have failed to submit the notification, failed to meet this requirement, they will take it as exception. But still, in case you are still having the virtual meeting, board meeting should be properly maintained and it should be properly retained for future purposes.
Absolutely, and I would just like to add one thing to which Rahul has mentioned, that please note that this current notification relates to 2019 year. So it's on or period starting from 1st of Jan to 31st December in a lot of cases. So the board minutes and all should have already been prepared for that. That is what the expectation is, that basically you would have complied, and because that's what you're reporting on the past. So yes, when we do next year's, then COVID situation may be one of the relevant points. But when we are talking about direct and managed, it's related to 2019 when COVID wasn't present. So please bear in mind, and that's where perhaps if those minutes and corporate governance has not been in place, now is the right time to review your internal process and prepare those documents. So that's what I would just like to add on to that, what Rahul had mentioned. The next question is, what if you just took the trade license from DDA, but couldn't start the activities because of COVID and in wellness activity and no activity as yet?
Yeah, DDA has noted mandatory to submit the notification for all the licensee. This is first point. Second point, the year of establishment is very important. If your company has established in 2020, then again it's not applicable to you. If your company was established in 2019, and your financial year is already over on 31st December 2019, then depending upon your eligibility, whether you fall under the one of the relevant activity or not. But as you mentioned, you did not even started the business activity, so you will not need to submit the notification to DDA. But it's encourageable to submit as well. There is no harm to submit, but it also shows good practice as well. But from the law perspective, it's not applicable to the business.
No, fair enough. And also, when you're talking about some recent businesses, it would be great if you can mention of which month, because it's important whether you started in 2019, whether your trade license was issued in 2019 or 2020. There are some questions later on that, which we'll answer. But yeah, if it is a recent business, then please do write down the year or the month when your business was or trade license was issued. The next question is, not carrying out any relevant activity mentioned in list, and we are governed by Ministry of Economy. Should we notify?
If you are licensed from the economic departments, then yes, you have to report to Ministry of Economy. Ministry of Economy will be the governing regulatory authority in your case. So it's not making mandatory to submit to the official circular, but it's highly encourageable and it's strong advice from our side to submit the notification as not applicable in case it's not applicable in your business. So in the sense, you have to submit the notification irrelevant it's applicable or not to Ministry of Economy.
Excellent. The next question is, do you have the link to complete the RACES form? The regulation do not apply to me, but as far as external advisors to RACES say, all RACES companies have to submit. RACES advice on a very unclear form seems to say I don't need to complete the form, but best to do so, I think.
So yeah, regarding your first part of question, we have just provided you the link over chat where you can where you can submit the notification. And the second part, it's for RACES, it's mandatory to submit irrelevant that it's applicable or not applicable.
So definitely you do need to. And as we had mentioned that whether it's RACES or anyone else, it is best practice to try and at least notify even if it is not relevant. That's what we are doing with our clients. The next question is in terms of, I formed my company in late 2019. Is it applicable to me?
Yeah, it's a very important question, and most of the business are unsure whether they have to submit or no. First of all, we need to assess which authority you have obtained the license. If you are licensed from the DMCC authority, there is an exception that if your company is incorporated on or before 31st of December 2019, and irrelevant whether your financial year is over or not yet over, you have to submit the notification mandatorily. This is only exception in DMCC. For other, if your financial year is, this is your company's first year of establishment and you have already financial year is over, and it's in the sense it's already over by 31st December 2019, that's mandatory to submit. However, if financial year is ending, let's say 31st March 2020 or 30th of June 2020, that is today, then there will not be penalty, but it's highly encourageable to submit the notification as no. There is no harm to submit notification if your business is not applicable.
Great. The next question is, if I start business only for visa purpose, but no dealing of property, do I need to register? And I think there's a follow-on question there. It says, if I buy items from Dubai and sell it in Dubai, do I need to file ESR? So there's two separate questions.
Yeah.
So
coming to the first part of your question, since you're engaged in visa services, so it will not be applicable prima facie by understanding your question. However, other elements, whether you're dealing with foreign connected person, how the legal structure is, whether your company is branch of a foreign company, and whether you have given loans or no. So all other parameters also need to be assessed. And coming to the second part of question, if we're just buying from locally and selling within the local, then it not fall under the distribution activity.
Yeah, so it would just the distribution activity. It is not that we are saying that it is not, the ESR is not applicable. The distribution activity part is not applicable. You still need to look at the other elements in terms of the loans and the headquarter business and other areas. So that's important. The next one is, how do the economic substance regulations apply to offshore companies registered at JADZA? In their substance, offshore companies do not have economic substance in the UAE, nor do they have a trade license, premises or employees.
In that,
very good question.
Yeah, in that case, they have to submit the notification from their agent name, and they have to mention the particular agent number. They have to submit the notification to the ZABSA itself.
Perfect. The next one is okay.
Yeah,
This one is responded. Okay, the next question is actually I formed my company in Jan 2020. Do I need to do anything about it now?
If your company is just established in 2020 only, then ESR is not applicable for this year. However, in 2021, you have to make sure that your company is being compliant in terms of ESR or no for the financial year 2020. If your company is established in 2019, then as I mentioned, for DMCC there is an exception, but for others it's all based on the financial year. But for DMCC, financial year will be irrelevant. It's all dependent on the company incorporation date.
Great. All I would like to add to that is that yes, at this moment there is no notification or there is nothing which needs to be done in terms of the filing. But what you need to bear in mind is that next year it will be applicable to yourself. So effectively, what you need to do is you need to have the house in order in terms of the corporate governance. So that's important. So that you, when the time comes for you to notify next year, everything is already in place. You don't need to do anything. So that's the only thing which I would say for any business which is set up in 2020. The next question is, I'm managing the business here, but the owner is my brother in India. We pay dividends to my brother. Is this part of ESR?
Yeah, to fall under the holding company, that it will be irrelevant about foreign connected person or no. Foreign connected person come into picture only in case of distribution and service center activity. And if your company business is only to hold the investments and you are driving dividend and capital gain from such holding of investments, then yes, you fall under holding company. However, if you are conducting any other commercial activity with the license of holding company as well, and then based on other activity, whether you fall under other distribution or service center or other activity, then you have to check separate eligibility for this.
And the next question is from a franchisee. So it's effectively, I have a master franchise for education based platform, which is from UK based institution. So the person is a master franchise owner. And I have some franchisees. So I believe there are some sub franchisees in UAE and India. Am I a high risk IP?
Yeah, for high risk IP, there should be a first criteria is you did not self-develop such asset. First criteria. Second, you acquired from a foreign group company, and then you are getting the licensee fee from another foreign company. Since in your case you are engaged in licensee rights and this is separate income, then you may fall under the service center if you have the already stake in other Indian company as well. For example, if you have stake in another company in India, let's say you have holding the shares in that company, then you fall under the service center definition as well.
Okay. The next question is about travel agency. In terms of, I've got a travel agency here, and I've got various relations with third parties all over the world because we have various arrangements from those. And some of them are with our family relatives as well. But everything is on arm's length basis. Everything is commercial. Does ESR apply to me as an agency based here?
Yeah. So ESR is not like this is one of the not criteria that there should be arm's length transaction or no. It have different implication in terms of transfer pricing. But to come for the ESR, even this is not like a crime that we have fallen under the ESR. This is one because most of the business owners are like worrying that ESR is become applicable, but I please how we can prevent this or something. So we'd like to mention that if ESR is applicable, then this is further compliance part similar to the land of like there is a law. But if you're falling under ESR, you have to make sure you have proper corporate practices in terms of like streamlining all the business processes, which are not just a temporary solution, but a permanent solution and impacting any other compliance as well, like in your VAT perspective for your other anti-money laundering and ESR law and other CBCR reporting. In terms of your question, since you're dealing with foreign connected person importing goods, and then yes, you fall under the distribution and service center.
Next question is more on clarification in terms of we've mentioned foreign connected persons or connected persons a lot of times. Just need a little bit clarity. Is related person more to do with blood relation, or is it like we have got 5 shareholders? So are all those 5 shareholders and their relatives the related party? How does it all work? It's if you can please
in
explain.
terms of UAE ESR regulation, the foreign connected person is specifically mentioned through the control or ownership. Other relations they did not specify, and all this become only through ownership or control by shareholding. If there is a common shareholder and the similar stake is being held in another company outside the UAE, then it falls under the foreign connected person.
Someone had advice, so one of the person has sought advice from outside. Effectively, their friend said that it is 100% mandatory for every single businesses to actually notify today. So is that true?
Notification is not mandatory for all the licensee from all the regulatory authorities. Majorly, most of the free zones are made it mandatory to submit the notification. However, it's always encourageable and highly show your good practice, good corporate practice that your company has followed the internal assessment process. And now based on your assessment result, you are submitting as not applicable. There is no harm to submit as not applicable. It's always encourageable and always show a good practice to authority. Unlike authority come back to you, make some inspection or audit and make some surprises. So it's always better to make your notification.
Yeah, basically just expanding a little bit further is that the one of the laws does say that, okay, it is up to the relevant regulatory authority to decide how they want the notification. So in the first part, the notification is very much on the basis of what the regulatory authority is saying. So if you're registered with, for example, RAKEZ, then RAKEZ decides. If you're registered with Silicon Oasis, the Silicon Oasis authority decides what form of notification and what you need to notify, whether it is mandatory or not mandatory. So each of them have been given independent approval. When the course of the final filing happens at that stage, perhaps it would all be centralized at that stage. There are still some, we are waiting for some guidance to come through, which is planned to be issued in the Q4 of this year. So that we'll know about the centralized centralized filing later on, but that is for that. Notification is definitely to relevant authorities and they are deciding what needs to be done. So the next question is, can the company's finance manager name mentioned as the designated contact person on the declaration section of the ESR notification?
Yeah. It's always encourageable to mention the name which is the authorized signatory of the company. The authorized signatory, like who are the power of attorney on the trade license, they have a particular designated contact number. That should be always a good practice to mention. And because that is a person who is overall responsible and they have the full control of this company.
Okay, great. There's a follow-on question for the JAVZA question, because what we've mentioned is that JAVZA agents need to just notify. So thank you for your answer. On this basis, do offshore companies only need to notify that they do not fall within the economic substance regulation?
Yes, they have to submit the notification, and based whether they fall under relevant activity, most likely they will not, and they have to submit as not applicable.
Okay, excellent. So we've gone through the question. Thanks coming through. Okay, we are still open for questions. As we said, so we are approaching around 10 o'clock now. We are going to be available, both myself and Rahul, available till around 11 o'clock to answer any other questions. So feel free to ask whatever questions that you may have so that we can answer those. Today is the deadline, so it is important for each one of you to file your business. Encourage, if there are any other business owners within your circle who have perhaps not heard of ESR or perhaps have not filed, please reach out to them, and you will be doing them a favor purely because you will help them save 10,000 dirhams. In the current environment, every single penny counts, and obviously 10,000 is a big sum of money, whether COVID or non-COVID, it doesn't matter. 10,000 is a big sum of money, and we don't want to pay the penalties. So I am encouraging each one of you. There are people who are still joining, and perhaps the next question is.
So next question is, we are importing the goods from outside the UAE, that is from third party, but we are providing such goods to foreign connected person that is in Singapore. So to answer your question, to fall under the distribution, the one of the criteria is import should be from foreign connected person. The export, whether it should to related party or third party, it is irrelevant. The first criteria is import. If you are importing from a third party, then you may not fall under distribution. However, if you're providing any services to a foreign group company that is in Singapore, then you may have to check for the service center classification as well. But to answer your question, you did not fall under the distribution activity.
Fair enough. Next question is to do with the, okay, it's basically if we were to take your services, what are the fees? So I'll answer that very quickly. All it is, if you do want to take our services, you can get in touch with us. Just send us an email or send us a message here. We can help you with it. Our fees are starting from 500 dirhams for doing the assessment and notification. It starts from 500, but we've had certain clients whereby it's been around 5,000 because those are complicated structures. But those are for more international clients, bigger clients where they have set up complicated structures in different countries and they are doing some business in UAE. So that's where that fees is. But typically our services start from 500 dirhams. That's what it is. So I believe that whatever questions have come up until now, we have answered all of those. Right, so the next question which has come now is in terms of, I have got a holding company which is based in Singapore. We are just buying goods from them and our customers are based here and in GCC. So is that foreign, means is buying from holding company part of ESR?
Yeah, if you're importing from a foreign connected person, then yes, you fall under the service center. And further part, since you might have the trade license as a branch from foreign company, then you have to check for other implication as well, whether you are having cost reimbursement, whether you're providing services to a foreign group company, like in terms of marketing business or to getting the orders from the Middle East and then providing the direct like lead or quotation to the head office, then you have to fall under, then you can fall under the service center definition.
The next one is, I have got a business here, but all my transactions are third port shipment. So what I believe what you mean is that you buy perhaps from China and your customers are based in Africa. So effectively, the transaction is happening without touching the ports of UAE, yeah. But you are doing all the billing from here. So that's basically what you're asking. Does it ESR apply because you're using UAE only as for billing purposes?
Yeah. So first criteria is whether you're dealing with foreign connected person or no. And the second point, if you are providing direct port shipment outside the UAE to the overseas customer, then you did not fall under the distribution. Why? Because you are not engaged in importing goods from bringing outside to the UAE. In that case, you did not fall under distribution. Now come to the service part. Again, come to the first point, whether you deal with foreign connected person or no. If you are providing services to a foreign connected person in terms, then you may fall under service center for the very obvious reason. Yeah, like you are facilitating both parties for this particular order and you are engaged in provision of service, irrespective whether you are engaged in goods or no, in terms of goods are not actually received, but you may fall under the service center if you are dealing with the foreign connected person. However, if you are dealing with third party, you have supplier and customer both are third party, then you not fall under this particular distribution and service center. Yeah. But you have to again check whether you may fall under the headquarter or holding company if you have other investments or you have loans given to any individual or any other company.
Fair enough. The next one is from events company. The events, at this moment, we don't have any events going on because of all the restrictions, but last year we did a lot of events across the world from here. So our clients were from across the world and we did events in UAE and in other countries. So is ESR applicable to me? What do I need to do?
Yeah, so events cover the services part. Again, we have to check for the first step whether you're dealing with foreign connected person or no. If your answer is no, then it's not applicable to you in terms of distribution and service center.
Okay. Yeah. And next one is I give loans to my employees to help them out during this time, and also last year when my staff require loans, I give them loans, but I have never charged them interest or anything. They just repay it or deduct it from salary. So is ECR applicable to me on this case?
Can you specify like which? Can you please repeat? Yeah.
So this is effectively what they're saying is that they have employees, and as support to their employees, they sometimes give them loans in advance salary. So effectively it's salary advance.
Yeah.
But they don't charge any interest or anything, and that is deducted in the future from the future salary.
Understood.
So
yeah, thank you for clarifying. So since while providing the provision of loans, since you are not charging any consideration, it's just a provision of loan. One of the important criteria to follow the lease finance is there should be a consideration in terms of like it can be a interest part or other form of consideration. Since you are not engaged in provision of loans against getting anything in return, then you not fall under the lease finance activity.
Okay, fair enough. One of the other questions that has come in now is we are part of a group. Ours is a subsidiary. The head office, when the business was set up in UAE, the head office advanced us a loan at that stage. There are some payments which have been made to the head office, but there is no formal documentation for those payments. Some of them have been classified as dividends, some of them have been loan repayments. So what is it that we need to do?
Yeah. As I understand, your business is not falling under lease finance. Why? Because lease finance is applicable when you are receiving the interest. In your case, since your head office has given the loan, you are paying the interest. It's not applicable in terms of lease finance. Now coming to the other activity, your business may fall under the headquarter business or service center. If you are providing services to a foreign connected person, then yes, you may fall under service center. Otherwise, if you're still, then it may fall under headquarter. Why? Because you are providing services in terms of like you're responsible for overall success and the monitoring of your all the foreign group entities, and you're providing some services in terms of like it can maybe coordinated services, and you're engaging something on behalf of the group, then you fall into the headquarter business.
Great. The next one is from a medical center. So I run a medical center here, and obviously all my patients are from UAE. So that's what my income is. But I do import a lot of the medical supplies from overseas, from my brother-in-law's company, which is based in India. So I import from him, but obviously those are medical equipment, but I have patients whom we provide this service to. So is ESR applicable to me now?
Yeah.
The next question is, what if you just took the trade license from DVA, but couldn't start the activity because of COVID?
Sorry for that. Yeah. So coming to your question, since your company is not purchasing from a foreign connected person, then it will not fall under the distribution and service center.
Okay, so the purchase, from what I understand, that the purchase doesn't matter. It's basically the services in UAE. That's basically the important
They should
part.
be purchased from foreign connected person to classify. If the similar person has another shareholding in another company in India, then yes, it fall under the ESR relevant activity.
Okay. Other one is I have got a manufacturing plant based out of Africa, and from there goods come to UAE. Those are raw materials for us. We value add those goods. We put them together. We assemble them in UAE, and then we export from UAE to Europe. So what is there ESR applicability for that?
Yeah. So in this case, since you are engaged in importing from foreign connected person, then yes, you fall under this. And this is another concept. This is your answer, specific answer. There is some contradiction in relevant activity guide and cabinet resolution, in the sense in the law and the guide. they have specifically mentioned in the law that there should be export of imported item after making some validation or some other assembly part or installation or some other sort of evaluation. But for the relevant activity, they did not mention about export part. It means irrelevant that whether you're exporting or not. So the main criteria to fall under distribution, if your company is engaged in importing from a foreign connected person, whether you're selling them local or exporting it, it fall under the distribution and service center. This is as per assessment and understanding about the law and considering the other countries ESR which they are adopting and considering the OECD overall framework.
Okay. The next one is following on your distribution outside of UAE. If we make purchases from foreign connected party, but the shipment is made direct to a third party in KSA, since it doesn't enter or exit from UAE, does this fall under earned income from relevant activity? So this is effectively
in that case,
so third port shipment. Similar.
This is what we earlier answered. Since your goods are not being imported within the UAE, the core income, there is concept of CAGA, the core income generating activity. Since you are not importing it internally, goods are directly moving, you do not fall under the distribution. However, since now what further understanding you are providing service to third party, then again you did not fall under the service center. But other elements in terms of other activity need to be assessed because your business is one of the most likely to fall under the other activity as well.
Okay.
There's some couple of questions.
Yeah. So what is the requirement for Creative City in Fujairah? I have a consulting service and do not sell any physical goods.
So Fujairah Creative City, they have come up with their particular form, that is Word form, and the deadline is 31st July 2020, and it's applicable only to whom those are falling under relevant activity. It's not mandatory to submit by all. And since you are engaged in providing of services and you did not mention you're providing services to foreign connected person, I assume you know, then you not need to submit the notification by law, but it's encourageable and advisable to submit the notification to authority. By this way only authority will came to know that you are providing you have did the assessment and providing the notification.
Next is there any set list of requirements for the ESR filing in order for us to start preparing the relevant information and documentation before the due date of 31st December 2020?
Yeah, there are 3 level parameters. First is your board meeting records should be properly adequately maintained, and all records are being maintained, like your physical directors are being present in the UAE. And coming to you have adequate record of your employees, that's WPS sheet. You have all the lease agreement to demonstrate your adequate premise part, and the expenditure, your financials should be properly audited. It will help us to give more reliability and credibility to your financial records. So these are certain documents which you, as a best practice, you should maintain, and proper documentation in terms of you are purchasing from a foreign connected person, proper contracts. If you are given loan to any person, there's a proper loans agreement is placed, and the consideration, the terms of payment, repayment is already clearly set out. So these are some certain set of questionnaire or documents you can keep it ready. And we are also happy to assist if you like something in terms of guidance, how your future to be business process should be, what are how to streamline the process. We can also help in that regard.
Great. Next question is no, sorry, we've answered this one now. Okay, sorry, that was answered. So yeah.
Okay. So next question is regarding the DED license. They have mentioned whether the DED is mandatory or not. So this is like earlier I mentioned, the DED is not a mandatory. It's reportable to Ministry of Economy. It's not mandatory, but it's encourageable to submit. There is no harm to submit as not applicable. They have also changed the form as well as not applicable last week or so. And it's always encourageable, highly encourageable to submit as not applicable. First, do the assessment and then submit.
Next one is I just run a simple speakers bureau here in UAE, but I have got speakers from all over the world who come here for presentation. That's what was happening then. Now we are doing it all online, but previously they were all coming from overseas, and we were representing those speakers in UAE. So is there any ESR applicability to me because we are getting these speakers? They're not related to me, but these are all well-known speakers from across the world, bringing them to UAE.
As per the given facts, as you mentioned in the chat, so this ESR would not be applicable. With the only reason in terms of distribution and service center to fall, they should be dealing with the foreign connected person, like providing services to foreign connected person. So in this case, we are not falling under foreign connected. You're like all the international speakers are not in terms of the related party. Then you may have to assess the other part as well regarding you have any loans provisions given with interest or no. But coming, it's not falling under distribution and service center.
Next one is we have car modification or vehicle modification plant in UAE. Our clients are from all over the world. Sometimes they purchase the vehicle, give it to us for modification. Sometimes we purchase the vehicle, they pay us full money. We buy the vehicle for modification from the car dealers, modify it and then export it or give it to them in UAE. So is there an ESR implication for us?
Yeah, so to ESR, in case you are engaged in like exporting of goods and like buying from the local, there should be services part to be considered if you're dealing with a foreign connected person. Since you are not importing from the goods from outside, it not follow the distribution definition. But if you're dealing with providing services to a foreign connected person, then yes, it's falling under the service center definition and ESR relevant activity will become applicable.
Excellent. We are two shareholders, me and my brother. We started up the business together. I head up the UAE office and my brother is based out of the India office. So there are transactions between both the companies and we have same clients as well across the world. Some service from India, some service from here. So how does ESR apply to us?
Yeah, if you are engaged in providing those services to your brother business, then we have to first check whether you are providing what is the shareholding pattern of your Indian business, whether both shareholder pattern in UAE are same in the India as well. Then in yes, in fall. Otherwise, since you are one of the trade shareholder which is in UAE, in that case also if you are holding, they're controlling the company in B, and they also in UAE they have the major stake, let's say 25% or more, then it fall under distribution and service center since you are engaged in providing the services.
Okay, sorry, one person has said they missed our answer on. Okay, I have started business only for save tax and visa and started trade license in 2016. And I have business outside Dubai, but no dealing with property in Dubai. Do I need to fill the form? So this is a question that basically, from what I understand, is that you've got a trade license in Dubai for visa purposes. So you've got a visa in Dubai. And the purpose of setting up that trade license was to perhaps save tax and just get a visa. So the trade license has been active from 2016. The business is all done outside Dubai. So just prima facie, it looks like that it will be applicable. The ESR will be applicable because that's what the ESR law was designed for. But Paul, if you can perhaps expand.
Yeah, if you're engaged in providing the services, then yes. But however, since your company is already established in 2016, you have to check from which authority you have obtained the trade license. If it's falling under one of the free zone, which has made it mandatory, then you have to submit the notification mandatorily. And as you mentioned, the only purpose was to save the taxes and it was to start the visa activity. But you have business outside UAE as well. Then whether your business, you are providing services as well from the UAE to the other for your business outside the UAE. If you have any services being performed or any reimbursement of cost being undertaken, then you may fall under the service center definition as well.
Yeah, so I think it is very, very important because that's what the ESR law was designed for in terms of profit, moving profit from one country, from a tax country to a non-tax country. That's what the main purpose of this ESR being the financial transparency is. So it's very difficult to answer your question as to how it will be applicable without looking at the physical documents and seeing what the corporate governance is, where are you based. So there's a whole load of questions and assessment that needs to be done internally and determine whether ESR is applicable or not, and if so, what sort of notification we need to do. Also, it is important to understand that we need to then put together the right corporate governance, right paperwork to ensure that whatever is notified and submitted to authorities can be substantiated in the background. So that is absolutely important. So hopefully it has been of help to yourself with that. If you've set it up for that purpose, but we need to see the transactions underneath, what type of transactions you are doing. That will only determine whether the ESR is applicable or not. Next question is to do, I have a freelancer, I'm a freelancer and only provide part-time services to different creative agencies. So is ESR applicable to me because I'm a freelancer based in Dubai?
Yeah, prima facie it will not be applicable to you. And based on your regulatory authority guidance, you may have to submit the mandatory notification if they ask.
Yeah. So for you, it would just be a simple notification, which you can just choose which authority you are registered with. They will be able to guide you as to what needs to be done on that level. Great. So we've answered a lot of the questions that have been put to us. If there are any more questions, please feel free to ask us. And we'll be more than happy. It's 10:20 at the moment. We've got another 40 minutes of Q&A session, which is open. Both myself and Rahul are available to answer whatever questions that you may have. Okay, the next question that has come through is, I have a web-based business, so my transactions are across the world. I provide an e-commerce platform. I'm based here, but I've got an e-commerce platform where we provide goods across the world. So is ESR applicable to us?
Since you are engaged in like e-platform and providing the web services as well, if you're dealing with a foreign connected person, then you may fall under the foreign connected person definition. Like one of your associates who are outside the UAE, it may fall under foreign connected person. Then ESR would be applicable in terms of relevant activity. That name is distribution and service center. However, if you're just dealing with third parties in terms of web services or any agency services you are providing, then ESR would not be applicable in that sense.
Okay, excellent. Actually, another e-commerce question. This is to do with I've got an e-commerce business. I set it up in 2015. I have taken the trade license here, but I'm hardly present here because I run my business from overseas. Here, the trade license is just for the e-commerce platform. So does it impact me? I come here once every 6 months to ensure that I have my visa, but I'm hardly present here. So is ESR applicable to me?
Yeah, since in your case, you are in most of the cases you are outside the UAE, but ESR is applicable in that sense if you are engaged in relevant activity. If your business is not engaged in relevant activity in the sense you are dealing with third parties only, not with a foreign connected person, and your legal structure is not like it's a branch of any foreign group company, it's not like a subsidiary of foreign group company, it's just a standalone company, then it will not fall under the relevant activity. Then it would be irrelevant about your physical presence. Otherwise, it's always a good practice to maintain proper record whenever you visit, have proper decision-making process, and the board meetings are properly being maintained and retained in the UAE.
Excellent. Next one is, there are 2 shareholders of our company and they are mostly based in Singapore. Each of them travel in and out of UAE on a different day. So can we have a board meeting minutes signed by either one of them, or should it be both of them?
Yeah,
so that's a very good question.
Yeah, as per law, there's an adequate quorum of meetings should be present. So there is a minimum requirement of quorum of 2 persons. Since you are 2 shareholders, so both should be mandatory to be present to have the final decision-making process.
Sure, but in the current environment, or perhaps even before COVID came in, Rahul, people were still having meetings online. So if suppose one of the shareholder is here and the other person is based in Singapore, can they have a board meeting online, and then the person who's sitting here can sign that yes, the quorum was present because they were physically present.
Yeah, that could be one of the feasible approach. And we also expect that during this recent COVID situation, authorities is providing some leniency in terms of virtual meeting. And however, for other, apart from the COVID or pre-COVID or post-COVID, they have mentioned that director should be physically present in the UAE. So this is one of the criteria you should keep in mind when you are complying with the ESR annual reporting.
Yeah, just to add on to that, purely if you look at what is the context of the ESR law, the context of the ESR law is very simply if the main business is not being carried in UAE and it is being used because of its tax-free benefits, that is where the whole notification and advising the authorities, but that's the financial transparency that is being asked for. So that's why the physical presence at one stage has been emphasized. If someone is not even coming here and they're just running the business from here, then perhaps it is using the tax-free jurisdiction as opposed to where they are based, where there may be taxes. So that's the reason why it's important to have that physical presence in here. There are some other solutions which are possible as well to be compliant, and those could be in terms of outsourcing. So some of the services can be outsourced. So it's not necessarily that you have to build up a whole empire and you have to build up a whole office structure in UAE. It can be that you are typically, you've got 1 or 2 people based here, and then you've outsourced some of the other services. Perhaps your back office, perhaps your admin has been outsourced, perhaps your accounting has been outsourced. But it needs to show that your business is actually a physical business which is based here. That is the important part, as opposed to a shell company which is just purely being used for profit transfer from a non-tax jurisdiction. So that's the important part at all points of time. Again, there are ways in which you basically put together the right context, you put together the right documentation, you have the right arrangements, which will help you stay compliant with the ESR law. Because absolutely it is important to benefit from the tax jurisdiction here, but it is now that structure and reporting has come into place, so it becomes important to have the right documentation as well at all points of time. So a very good question in terms of we are aware of lots of our clients who had that similar structure whereby their shareholders were based outside overseas, but then they've had to make the changes to the business in certain logistics to ensure that they are compliant with the ESR. Okay. As we said, we are still live for another 30-35 minutes. Any other questions that you may have? Quite happy to answer those questions. If you require our help, please feel free to get in touch with us as well outside the webinar. We'll be more than happy to answer those questions across to yourself. So the next question is, following to the board meeting requirement, only one shareholder is an active MD while the other is just a sleeping partner. Can the minutes signed by the only active partner sufficient for ESR test?
Yeah, as I mentioned, there should be adequate quorum should be present in the meeting. So there should be a tick 2. The minimum requirement for quorum to be present is 2 in case of 2 director only. Then in that case, you have to make sure at least one board meeting is being conducted in the UAE. Law does not specify that every quarter you should have, unlike in company law that they have mentioned that there should be every quarter should be a board meeting. If you have at least one board meeting in the one financial year where you can have the board meetings can be signed, it will be a good practice and also show a good justification at the time of ESR reporting level.
Absolutely, it helps, and that is where we were saying that perhaps the businesses, how they were doing business, have to make some minor adjustments to the logistics part and also to the documentation part, which is maintained by them. The next one is about a software company. So they have developed a software in UAE, and they are now selling the software as a master distribution to different parts of the world. So are we part of a IP high risk category?
Yeah, if you are dealing with the software, it is a product, then you may fall under the other goods definition as well. If you are dealing with the foreign connected person or no, in terms of you're providing the services, like in terms of giving the rights, then you fall under the service definition as well. But in to fall under the particular IP for high risk, first we need to understand whether falling under the IP or no. IP is that for intangible asset for which we are self-developed, like copyright, trademarks, or other technical know-how, and we are providing such copyright or like brand. You are giving rights to use your brand name to another company. Against such, you are charging royalty and any form of other consideration. Then it may fall under the IP business. However, if you are dealing with the software businesses, then it may result into the end product, and then it may classify in the goods or services based on the activity being performed.
Okay. Next one is from an influencer. So excellent. So I'm an influencer. I started my business 3 years ago, and over the last 3 years, we've built up. I've got a pool of influencers, which I work with. Some of them are my direct family relatives. A lot of them are individual freelancer influencers. Our clients, my clients are some large companies based in UAE, some of the corporations based outside UAE also. So is ESR applicable? Because I'm dealing with some of my family members who are the suppliers. So is ESR applicable to me? They're based, my family is based across the world.
Yeah, if you're buying from your family business, then there could be a risk or chances that you're dealing with a foreign connected person. We need to check the legal structure of the company, how it's being, from which company, from which family is being purchased. If you're falling under this, then yes, you fall under the distribution. Otherwise, it will not be falling under the relevant activity.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The response to that is no. I am the only shareholder, but all my relatives, they are, or my family, they are part of supply chain. So they are also influencers in their own right. They're all freelancers. I just take their services whenever I need them. Yeah. So does that mean I have ESR requirement?
Yeah. Since you are just the only shareholder in this company, and you had no other stake outside the UAE as well, just only through the other relation, then it will not fall under the service center or distribution activity.
Next was interesting. I am acquiring another business. I'm in the process of acquiring another business and trade license now. Do I need to comply with the ESR for the company that I'm acquiring?
Yeah. This is your future plan. The ESR is applicable for financial year, which is most likely in your case could be January to December 2019. The reportable financial year is Jan to December if your company is having adopting this particular financial year. Whatever you have plans for this year, it will be reportable in next year. So for 2019 reportable financial year, we have reporting now as a compliance part, as a notification we are submitting for the concerned previous financial year, that is 2019. If you did any relevant activity in that regard, then you have to submit the concerned relevant activity and give the notification to the authority.
I have a farm here in UAE, and the technology we have purchased from our related parties from India and from Korea. So we used to work in Korea, so we've got shareholders from Korea from whose companies we've bought that technology. Our clients are all based in UAE. So we use that technology to grow various vegetables and fruits in UAE. Is ESR applicable to me?
Yeah, since you are engaged in for reason of obtaining the services part from a foreign company which is located in India or Korea, then it will not fall under the distribution activity because you are dealing in the services and you are not providing services to foreign connected person as well. Since you are producing the item of food products here only, and then you're providing a local supply, then it not fall under the export of services as well, since you're not providing export of services. Now, another part we need to check whether you are when you acquire the technology, whether any consideration is being moved further, or how the strategic decision making is being undertaken in terms of providing the services. If you are providing services to your forum group company in terms of like reimbursement of some expenditure or other recharge of cost, then you may fall under the other activity, let's say headquarter business or again service center as well.
Right. So the answer to that is yes. When we bought the technology was brought in from one of my partners, and we paid consideration to them, and then we pay them royalty every year for the use of that technology.
Yeah.
So is ESR applicable? Because we bought the technology from one of the shareholders company, and now we are paying annually. We pay them some royalty.
Yeah,
for use
you are
of
not
that
receiving the royalty. You are, and it's also not fall under goods definition. One of the key criteria in CIGA, like core income generating activities, like they should be management, importing the goods, and they are managing the order, accepting the order, and managing the inventory. The technology part is a part of sort of service which you are importing, and by using and adopting this technology, you are engaged in further process here in UAE. Since you are not engaged in importing of goods, also these services are not being exported. So as per our understanding, it will not fall under the relevant activity.
Okay, excellent. Next one is from estate agent. We are estate agents dealing with properties in UAE only. Although we sell sometimes properties in London. Is ESR applicable to me?
With dealing within the UAE will not call for the ESR certain activity, relevant activity. However, if you are providing services to some of the clients in London, we need to check whether we are dealing with foreign connected person or no. If other parties are third party only, then again ESR is not applicable to you.
Okay, same person has asked another question. One is about the sale and purchase. The next question is about the rental. We have many private landlords across the world, and we manage their properties portfolio in UAE. So we collect rent on their behalf, and we pay them, and we do their whole maintenance and everything on their behalf. So is ESR applicable? Because that's we charge them a fee for it.
Yeah, we need to check the shareholding pattern of another company as well. How much stake of is the same common shareholder are there? Then yes, you may fall under the foreign connected person. If other companies located outside the UAE and you are providing services to them. However, with the limited information, this may not fall under the distribution and service center definition.
Okay, fair enough. So they have said we have some private landlords, mostly private landlords, and we are managing their properties. There's no companies for whom we are managing properties.
Okay, so in that case, you will not fall under the distribution and service center because you are not engaged in provision of services to like export of services to a foreign connected person.
Okay, great. We have a furniture manufacturing plant in Javza. We import from our, although we manufacture, we sometimes import raw materials from outside, from Malaysia, as well as sometimes fully made furniture as well from outside. Our clients are hotels across the GCC region. So is ESR applicable to us?
Yeah. First, we need to assess whether you are importing from a foreign connected person or no. If you are importing raw material and your company is located in Javza and you're importing raw material from foreign connected person, then yes, you fall under distribution definition. Otherwise, if you're dealing and importing from third party only, you're importing from third party from other companies which are unrelated to your business, then it will not fall under the distribution definition.
Great. I have an event production company based in DIP, so fairly close to where we stay. So I have an event production company here, and our orders come from all over the world. Wherever there are events, we are able to produce equipment and sometimes export, or we sometimes fly in and use local production facilities. So is ESR applicable to us?
Yeah, fall under the ESR. If you are providing event sort of services to a foreign connected person, then it may fall under the service and distribution activity. If you're just providing event services to third party which are unrelated to you, then it will not fall under the distribution and service center.
Okay, I'm a wedding planner, and I have many clients who want destination weddings. A lot of them are our friends and sometimes family as well, for whom I organize the wedding from start to finish. So is that is ESR applicable, as because I'm dealing with my clients are sometimes my friends and family, but I do provide services to third parties as well.
Yeah, similar to my previous question regarding the event planner, if you are dealing with third parties only, not with the foreign connected person, then you not fall under the service center definition. Hence, the ESR sort of relevant activity will not fall under the ESR.
Great, great. So we are entering the last literally 20 minutes of our Q&A session. It has been a very interesting session whereby we've had a lot of different types of questions, people from all over the different industries asking different questions, what is relevant, what is not relevant, and hopefully we've been able to answer a lot of those questions. As we said, we are available till 11 o'clock to answer any other questions that you may have. Happy to be of service to each one of you. Please ask whatever questions that you may have. The next question which has come is, we have got 7 companies in UAE in different regions based in Dubai and Sharjah. All our business is in UAE only. We manufacture and we sell in UAE. Is ESR applicable to us?
Since you are engaged in manufacturing process, and I assume you are buying raw material also from within the UAE, and there is no export of service as well, then you don't fall under the relevant activity in terms of distribution of service center, since you're buying within the UAE itself. However, if your company established in particular free zone, then it may become mandatory for you to submit the notification as not applicable.
Actually, the follow-on question on the follow-on answer on that is, yes, we do buy from overseas. There's a lot of times we buy from overseas, but all our customers are in UAE. So our raw materials come from overseas.
Yeah, so there is an absence of foreign connected person, like you are importing from third party only, then it would not fall under the distribution definition.
Great. I have a company in Silicon Oasis. I noticed the deadline was earlier than 30th June. Is penalty applicable to me now?
Yeah, as per the DSO earlier guideline, official guidelines, they have mentioned in circular the deadline is 31st of May. Then later on they have extended to 5th of June, then followed by until to 9th of June. But so far, as per our understanding with recent interaction with them, they are still accepting, but only till 30th of June, that is by today itself. However, later point of time submission, it may result into penalties. So it's a highly encourageable to all to submit the notification within the timeline.
Excellent. Just to add on a little bit on top of that, we have got many clients in DSO. We service a lot of clients in Silicon Oasis, and we've been submitting their notifications and been in touch directly with the licensing authority on that. And up until now, they've been accepting whatever responses that have been submitted by us, even though on their sort of notification, official notification, the deadline is past it at the moment. As we had mentioned that the deadlines were, each of the relevant authority was given their own authority as such to create whatever deadline they deemed as necessary. And although most of the jurisdictions have set 30th June as the deadline, DSO was before, and there's one more which is on 31st July. Which one is that?
Only Fujairah Creative City.
So only Fujairah Creative City, yes. So the Fujairah Creative City is the deadline is in end of July. Other than that, everybody else, today is the deadline. for filing. So great. We are in the final quarter of the Q&A session. If there are any other questions, obviously feel free to ask those questions. We are around for the next 15 minutes or so till we bring this session to a close. Thank you very much, everyone, for asking all the different type of questions. It has been hugely important for us to reach out to each one of you because we felt the penalties, it's not something which anybody should be paying. So it is important you can do your own self-assessment. If you feel that you would like any of you can contact your trusted financial advisor, or you can get in touch with us as well. We can help you do that assessment if you have still got any doubts. One of the caveats which I had put in at the start of the meeting, I would just like to reiterate that we've answered a lot of questions. All these questions have been answered based on whatever you have told us on the Q&A session. It is not something that we have verified any documents. So that is the caveat. It is based on what you've told us, as opposed to us reviewing the documents and giving you a formal written advice. So that is absolutely important for us. When clients engage us, we do a thorough assessment and we give a written advice. And that is what I would suggest you also do. If not just, I'm not saying contact us, but what I'm saying is if you are seeking advice from a third party, then do please get a written advice. It is absolutely critical. It is not important to, it's not appropriate to just get the phone advice if you are seeking it from a third party. Because ultimately, if that advice turns out to be incorrect at a later stage, you will be responsible for penalties. And also you will not be able to demonstrate to the authorities that effectively you took whatever and ask for leniency because you will have no evidence to show that you have actually taken professional advice and somebody did advise you that. So you did everything right. It is the professional advice which was incorrect. So it is absolutely important. If you are seeking third party advice, please do get it in writing. That's the important part. The other thing which, while we are waiting for some of the questions to come through, I would just like to reiterate some of the important things that you need to take into account when you are doing the assessments, the 3 tests, which are very, very important. The first test is direct and managed in UAE. So is the business directed and managed in UAE? The second one is that, is it the core income generating activity based in UAE? So are you generating the activities from UAE? And third thing is about the adequacy in UAE. So have you got the adequate resources? Can you demonstrate it to the authorities that you've got those adequate resources? There is no guideline that, okay, for 1 million turnover, I need to have 5 employees. That's not how it works. It's basically depending on the business. Can you justify that you have got reasonable resources? So that's the important part in terms of doing your tests. The notification deadline, as we have mentioned, is today. So please do file your notifications in on time. That will be absolutely important. So at this moment, okay, there's another question. The ESR regulations emphasize on purchases from foreign connected party. How if we don't have any purchases, but we have sales to foreign connected party? I think that's the important part.
Yeah. See, the main purpose of the ESR is to prevent any expenditure billing in a country where there are high taxes. If you're importing from a foreign connected person, which is in India, so what they are doing, they are charging at high price to you, right? So in that case, to avoid any base erosion in a country, so that's why it is important that import of goods should be a foreign connected person. Otherwise, it will not meet the the rationale why this ESR was introduced. Since you are dealing only with the sale of foreign connected person, it means you are having the goods which you received, and there is a proper mechanism you follow, like purchase of goods and then going to the shipping part and custom clearance, and then further onward supply to foreign connected person. So foreign connected person is relevant in terms of good for distribution, and for services case is relevant for the in case of export of services. As example, if you have a company in India and you are service provider, so because there is a corporate tax in India, what you can do, you can issue n number of invoices with big amount for one particular service. What will happen for other company? It will be a purchase invoice for them, and their overall profit will get reduced because this happened. This is because of base erosion. Their overall profit, which is they are on the higher taxes, they have reduced their tax amount payable to Indian government. So that's why it's very important for services part. They should be export to a foreign connected. Same case for goods, it is import from a foreign connected person.
Absolutely. And this was one of the examples which Rahul had shared in his presentation, that how the ESR regulation was brought in because there was a lot of profits being moved from high tax jurisdictions to low tax jurisdictions. So you could manipulate the invoicing. So if it is, for example, a goods, then you basically, if and you're in a high tax paying country, you don't want to show all the profits in that high tax paying country. So what you do is you set up in UAE. This was the example given in our presentation. You set up in UAE, which has zero tax, and then you suppose you're selling good for $200 to a customer in US. What you do is you basically sell that good to UAE for say 110. So all you're doing is you're disclosing a very low profit in India, where perhaps the taxes are high, and then from Dubai you are then invoicing the full. So what you're doing is you're basically moving the profit away from tax jurisdiction, which was India, to a non-tax jurisdiction, which is UAE, and the intention at all points is basically to move the profits across. So this is effectively what the ESR regulation was brought in to combat. Because there is a lot of pressure from OECD as well as some of the tax jurisdiction countries to say that, look, they are losing out because realistically there is no business, there is no real business in UAE. All it is being used is as a tax shelter. It's not stopping you from doing those activities. So ESR is not that once is for stopping that activity, but yes, it is more about the financial transparency as to what it is. And once that financial transparency is there, that UAE will then basically may perhaps share that data across to the other tax jurisdictions, depending on what their arrangement between the different countries is. But this is more about having that transparency which UAE will have, which then increases the profile of UAE as a financially transparent country, and then it will attract the foreign direct investment. That is what it will help UAE as. So yes, to answer your question in terms of the ESR regulation, emphasize on purchases. Definitely, if you are purchasing, it's more to do with the goods. But when you're talking about the services, as Rahul mentioned, the services, we are based in UAE, and suppose we want to extract service-based profits out of, again, I'm using India from UK, anywhere. So I've got a business in UK where I'm paying a lot of profits. I can set up a company or a service-based company here. I can invoice UK. So that becomes a cost in UK and to my related company, and then I extract all the profits here and I don't pay any tax. So that's why it is important to understand how the law works. Where is it important? Is it the purchase from related party, or is it the sales from related party? So those are all the things which we need to be very, very careful about in terms of the declaration. So that's a very, very good question which was asked. We are in literally the final 9-10 minutes of the Q&A session. It has been absolute pleasure to answer all the questions that have been put to us, and hope each one of you found value in the webinar as well. Because this was the whole idea of this webinar was to make it relevant, as opposed to us just repeating what the law is. That's not the idea. The law we've simplified. Now, please, you ask the question. So we've had nearly 1.5 hours of good interactive session, whereby Lots of people have asked different types of questions. It has been great for us to be able to answer all of those questions to yourself. In the last 7-8 minutes that are left, if there are any other questions, obviously, please feel free to write them down on the Q&A session, and then it will be great. The other thing, a request to each one of you who are still here is we will be sending out a feedback form at the end of the webinar. We are always looking at continuous improvement for ourselves, and the improvement that we make is by listening to the feedback. So feedback is important for us. The total time that will take you to complete the feedback form is less than 1 minute, so it won't take an excessive amount of time from your busy schedule. Please do complete that feedback form. It will be a pleasure to then take your comments and improve upon the thing. So at this stage, we are reaching the end of our Q&A session. If there are any other questions, as we said, please feel free to ask them. We have had various people join during the webinar, ask the questions, and they have left, and we've received a lot of thank you messages. So it's gratifying to know that people have found value in this webinar and value in the Q&A session. So a lot of appreciative comments coming our way. So we really appreciate, we feel the gratitude. So grateful to yourselves as well in terms of asking the questions and being part of this webinar on Tuesday, 30th of June, when the deadline is fast approaching. So, or it's already here actually today being the deadline. So really appreciate each one of yours contribution to making this Q&A session a big success for us. Last question which has come in is, I formed my company in December 2019. I've just joined the webinar, so just want to ask, apologies if this has been answered before, but I set up the company in December 2019. Is it applicable to me?
Yeah. To answer your question, first we need to understand from where your company is being established, because there's several scenarios as well. If your company is established in DMCC, then you have to submit the notification mandatorily if your company is incorporated on or before 31st of December 2019. Since your case, your company was established in 2019, around end of December. So in that case, you have to mandatorily submit the notification to DMCC authority. We understand that the financial year is still not yet over, but irrespective of the financial period end, you still have to report. And coming to second scenario, if your company is established in December 2019, in that case, we assume your financial year is for 12 months period, that is following from 1st December 2019 or until end of 30th of November 2020. In that case, your financial year is still yet not over. In that case, it's not mandatory for you to submit the notification. However, the law clearly mentioned there will be no statutory penalty if your financial year is ending after 31st December 2019 and you fail to submit. So it's still encourageable, you can submit, but it's not mandatory to submit for in your case.
Apologies, I've just joined now, another last minute joining. They've basically said they have a small clinic in Dubai. Do I need to do anything? It's very simple in terms of ESR. So do I need to do anything? I've got a clinic.
Yeah, since you're just engaged in local provision of supply or like services within the UAE itself, then you don't fall under the distribution and service sector. However, other parameters in terms of other activity need to be also assessed. So as per simple our understanding, it's not applicable to you.
Okay, no, thank you very much for asking these questions. What Rahul is mentioning about other activities, one of the things which we would like to clarify, it is part of the presentation. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the presentation. If not, this presentation will be going live in our YouTube channel as well, and it will be available for everyone to view. All it is the trade license activity has got nothing to do with your relevant activity. So it is important to understand that there are some other relevant activities, so which we've clarified in our webinar, which is the first half an hour of the presentation today. Please have a listen to that because it deals with topics like if you've perhaps given loans to employees and taken interest, those sort of things are part of the relevant activity. So you may need to listen to those to determine whether ESR is applicable or not. Only for your patients sort of having the medical facility, that part is not, but there are other activities, other operations that you may be doing in the business where it may become applicable to you. So please have a look through that, and if you still require our assistance at that stage, we will be able to more than happy to assist you. And as we said, the recording of this webinar will be going on to the YouTube as our YouTube channel, which we will share with yourselves, and you can feel free to listen to the webinar there. We are in literally the final couple of minutes of the session now. So if there are no further questions, I would like to just once again, thank you, each one of you, for being part of the session from start. There have been some people who have been part of the session from start, who have asked a lot of relevant questions and have got value from the comments that I can see in terms of the thank you notes. I can see that there's appreciation in terms of how the questions have been answered, and hopefully it has satisfied you and equipped you for making that right judgment, whether you're equipped to now do a full in-house assessment or you require professional help. Either way, good luck with the ESR filing. It is approaching 11 o'clock now, last minute left, and any last minute questions, fire away. Myself and Rahul are available. As I would just like to reiterate that we would be sending you the feedback form. So please do complete that feedback form. It is absolutely important for us to get that feedback, which we then use to improve our future webinars, which we have on various subjects. At this moment, ESR is critically important. So we've been conducting daily webinars for the last 10 days. Sometimes twice a day we've been conducting those webinars. It is 11 o'clock. Thank you very much, everyone. What I will do now is I will close the session, but I will close the live session, but the recorded session is currently being played on Teams. I will keep that open until all the attendees have had a chance to look at the whole session. So thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice day.